Are you considering going to Southeast Asia, but you want a place that is technologically developed, that is one of the freest economies in the world, that has tremendously well-developed infrastructure, that is safe, and that also happens to be very tax-friendly? And you're thinking, does a place like this even exist? Well, you know what? It does. It's Singapore, one of the last city-states in the world, and today we're going to be discussing how Singapore might just be the place where you're treated best. Hello everyone, this is Javier Correa, Research and Development Associate here at Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs go where they're treated best, optimize their taxes, increase their asset protection, and strengthen their privacy. Now, in today's video, we're going to be talking about Singapore, a very famous city-state, a place that we love here on the channel, a city-state that doubtless is one of the most attractive places to relocate to in Southeast Asia. Now, I do want to point out that Singapore, from an immigration perspective, is not nearly as simple as a Malaysia or a Thailand may potentially be. As we like to say on this channel, we have to get into certain countries early before they become too attractive, and therefore they begin to restrict some of the immigration permits that they once had. If you wanted to move to Singapore back in the 1970s or 80s, it was wide open. Today, it requires a substantial investment to actually obtain a residence permit in Singapore. We're going to have a lot of videos on that from the immigration side, but for now, we're going to be focusing on tax. So, assuming that you are able to obtain a residence permit to legally reside within Singapore, what are the major benefits you will find there from a tax perspective? Number one, and I think this is a very important thing to highlight, is that Singapore works on a semi-territorial tax basis. So if you have a company in Singapore, remitting money to Singapore might cause a taxable event, but provided that certain offshore profits are kept outside of the country, then globally your companies can enjoy some tax-free or tax optimal status, provided that, again, you calculate and you determine well when the money is going to be remitted to Singapore. When in the case of an individual, foreign income even remitted to Singapore will not be subject to taxation unless received through a partnership. So globally speaking, if you're an individual and you're going to relocate to Singapore, you are largely going to benefit from a territorial tax system, bar some exceptions. This is really, really good because this automatically means that all of your foreign source income will not necessarily be taxed in Singapore, and it presents a series of great opportunities for tax planning, especially if you have an offshore business. And on that note, if you do have an offshore business, then it is important to highlight the fact that Singapore does not have any controlled foreign corporation rules. So similar to Switzerland, you can live in Singapore and you can run an offshore business, and provided that you avoid any kind of permanent establishment linked to Singapore, so not having offices in Singapore, not performing any work from Singapore, not having any warehouses from Singapore, etc., then you could potentially run an offshore business and retain profits in that company and only be potentially subject to Singapore taxation if you pay out a salary to yourself as the director of the company, or potentially if you pay yourself out dividends and you hold your company through some kind of partnership structure. But globally speaking, the absence of CFC rules is definitely a very favorable point when it comes to Singapore. In addition to that, the other big element that I would like to mention and point out in this video is the fact that Singapore does not levy capital gains tax. So again, similar to Switzerland, you can be in Singapore, grow your wealth, grow your stock portfolio, grow that bond portfolio, see your crypto 10x, and you will not be taxed when you decide to cash out. This is very important for investors, my stock guys. I know you're out there. If you're looking for the next hot IPO, if you're into private equity, if you're into any of these areas of the economy, then relocating to Singapore might definitely be an advantage for you. Now, in addition to all of these great tax benefits that we see in Singapore, you also have to note that Singapore also has some of the safest banks in the world, anywhere in the world. Singapore banks open multi-currency accounts. Therefore, if you decide to bank in Singapore, you will be able to hold euros, US dollars, of course, Singapore dollars, Hong Kong dollars, Swiss francs, euros, anything you like, you'll be able to hold in your Singapore bank accounts. And this is a great and tremendous advantage. In addition to that, Singapore term deposits are also interesting investments. And in addition to that, you also have some of the best capitalized banks anywhere in the world. world. And if you're not ready to move to Singapore just yet, but you're interested in investing in Singapore, know that one of the major advantages is that, for example, Singapore does not apply any withholding taxes on dividends. So if you're looking for an option to park some money, invest in very safe companies, invest in a very dynamic market, a well-developed market in Southeast Asia, and you want to earn some withholding tax-free dividends, then definitely Singapore is worth considering. So Singapore presents a vast array of opportunities both for resident investors and non-resident investors. It is truly a wonderful place for the wealthy, for global investors in general. Now, as I explained before, do keep in mind that any income that does derive from work performed in Singapore will be fully taxable in Singapore, and you will be subject to progressive rates. And not only does Singapore have a great business-friendly climate, you can also be very close to other emerging markets. For example, we on this channel talk a lot about real estate opportunities in places like Cambodia, growth opportunities in places like Vietnam and Indonesia. Southeast Asia is definitely one of the most attractive places in terms of growth in the world. And if you're a Singapore-based investor, it is very likely that you will have a greater level of access to the Southeast Asia region in terms of investment, in terms of capital allocation, than you would if you are located somewhere in the West. So definitely, if you're a high-level investor, if you have a high net worth and you want to really focus on the Southeast Asia region, some investors believe that wealth is really moving from the West back into the East, and they see the future of the world in Southeast Asia, then definitely being located in Singapore can give you a strategic advantage. Singapore is also obviously one of the safest places in the world. So in terms of your security, your personal security as an affluent person, as a wealthy person, you can rest assured that in Singapore, you will have absolutely no issues. You can live a luxurious lifestyle. You can enjoy your wealth without having to look over your shoulder, and you can have your family move there as well. Great international schools, great shopping, and just overall a very well-developed commercial law and personal asset protection law. In fact, on that note, Singapore actually is one of the jurisdictions that has courts that are specialized in corporate matters. You have also one of the largest corporate arbitration centers located in Singapore, which makes resolving any business-related or corporate-related dispute much easier and much more efficient if you are running a business or if you have investment interests that you are controlling from Singapore. In addition to that, Singapore has integrated many common law features into its legal system, meaning that if you want to operate through a trust, whether it be a Cook Islands trust, a trust formed under US law, under UK law, or even a trust formed under Singapore law, you can do that, and you can hold your investments through the trust, make sure your grandchildren and your children get those assets from you in the most efficient and in the most optimized way. So if Singapore is of interest to you, if Southeast Asia is of interest to you, and if you believe that Singapore might be the place where you are treated best, or if you believe any other place in Southeast Asia or in the world is where you are treated best and you are not there right now, then go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, subscribe to this YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and let us help you go where you're treated best. I'll see you in the next video.